Welcome to Mostly Mets, and today we're going to be talking about an article that was put out this morning by Jeff Passan on ESPN. The great Jeff Passan, really the go-to guy when it comes to baseball news and rumors, and he had some interesting tidbits about the Mets, and we're going to talk about them today. First, if you are new here and you end up liking this type of content, please subscribe, give me a like, and comment what you think about these things that Jeff Passan said, and also my opinion on them. But anyway, the first thing that struck me, and it's something that we've talked about for a while now, since really in the middle of last season, the Mets seem to be blowing it up, and Jeff Passan said the Mets are blowing it up plenty. It's not just Acuna, Vientos, and Beatty, but also Nimmo and McNeil can be had. Now, we've known McNeil is on the trade block. That's been widely reported by many sources. The Mets clearly want to move on from Jeff McNeil. He's getting older. He's not the same hitter he was. He's not the same fielder he was. Maybe he'd be good on another team, change of scenery. But it seems like the Mets are just clearly looking to trade McNeil. Whether they can, I don't know. I don't know who's going to take on his salary. Maybe the Mets have to pay down some of his salary. I don't know what you're really getting back for Jeff McNeil, who's really been an underperforming player for a while. He did have his moments last year. He had his hot streaks, and that's kind of how he is. But he's clearly not the same guy who won a batting title a few years ago. He's just not that guy anymore. Yes, he's versatile. He could play multiple positions, but he doesn't play any of them overly well anymore. He's just a guy who got older, and he's not the same player. So I don't think there's anything new with McNeil. Now, when you're talking about Acuna, Vientos, and Beatty, he almost makes it seem like it's a foregone conclusion, like we were already thinking those guys are going to be traded. And while we were, I think what those guys could be traded for are part of a deal for a pitcher, right? If you're going to try to get Skubal from Detroit, or you're trying to get Hunter Green from the Reds, or Freddie Peralta from the Brewers, even though I don't know that any of those three are getting traded, any team that you're trading with a big pitcher, they're probably going to want a major league guy back. And those are kind of your young players who could step into any team and make an impact right away. Now, whether teams would want any of those three guys or which one they would want, I don't know, but it just seems like those guys could be involved in a deal to get someone else. When you talk about McNeil, I think you're just addition by subtraction, just trying to get him off your team, change the core around a little bit. The surprising one here, and it's not a surprise to me because it's something that I've talked about and a lot of people have talked about, and that's Nimmo being available. I think that I've been saying for a while now that I think the Mets should move on from Nimmo, not because I don't think he's a good player or because I just think he's a declining player. He's a guy who, while his advanced metrics look fine in left field, he's about an average left fielder. You can tell the injuries have taken a toll. He's starting to slow down. He profiles maybe as a future DH, and the Mets have plenty of those guys already. I just don't see a future in which you can pay Jeff McNeil $20 million for the next 5 years and be able to improve your team in a lot of different ways. I think I said McNeil, I meant Nimmo, obviously. But Nimmo, listen, I love Nimmo. He's a homegrown guy. He's a guy who's been around for a long time. He's the longest tenured Met at this point. But it's getting to a point where you can't really carry him on the roster if he's going to decline further. Now, he's fine. If he stays the way he is right now for the rest of his career, sure, he'll be fine. But you could see as he gets older, he's not aging that well. He's turned into more of a power hitter. He's not the same type of guy that he was before. So I could definitely see the Mets trading Nimmo. That being said, he also does have a full no-trade clause. He can't be traded unless he wants to go somewhere. So he kind of has you over a barrel there because he has to agree to any trade. And I don't know how many places where he would agree to do that. Maybe it doesn't seem like he wants a change of scenery. It doesn't seem like he wants to go anywhere. So I don't know that he'll waive that no-trade clause. I don't know that they'll be able to make that deal, but it is interesting that Jeff Passan says that he is available because a lot of fans thought that he would be, but we haven't heard that from many media members as of yet. Another guy who he says is, in his words, extremely available is Kodai Senga, and that multiple executives think that he will be moved, expect him to be moved. And this is something that I've talked about before, a lot of people have talked about before. Kodai Senga is just a guy that you could tell David Stearns is fed up with. The Mets organization is fed up with his little quirks and his little, his mechanics have to be perfect, and it's not him as a pitcher. When he pitches, he generally does pretty well. It's just the fact that everything has to be perfect. He has these little nagging injuries that take forever. And I've heard the people before say it's all Pete Alonso's fault, and Pete Alonso tried to kill, Kodai Senga. Listen, that was a freak accident that could have happened to anyone. Just because Pete Alonso was the one who throws it, and because he's not good on defense, he catches heat for it. Kodai Senga is made of glass. He could break at any second. So just because it was a bad throw and Senga got hurt, it could have happened at any time to anybody, with anybody throwing him the ball. He's just made of glass, and he's going to break at some point. And he does break a lot. And he needs the extra day rest. You have to go to a 6-man rotation for him. There's a lot of reasons why the Mets don't want him. Now, the reasons you do want him is, like I said, when he pitches well, like the first couple of months of last season, he was one of the best pitchers in baseball. But if you really remember watching those games, he didn't pitch like that. His ERA was low. He was giving up a lot of hard contact. He wasn't getting deep into games. He was throwing a ton of pitches. He was walking people. He just, the numbers might look fine, but they weren't going to last an entire season. He did not have his best stuff. He wasn't necessarily, he didn't look like a guy who had an ERA in the ones. He looked like a guy who was struggling a lot. So I think we kind of cloud that because last season felt so long, and it felt like maybe 2 seasons in one. It was the first half and the second half, and we really, forget about what happened early on, and we just look at the numbers and say like, oh yeah, he was really good. Well, he really wasn't. Yes, he was not giving up runs, but he was getting very lucky as well. He was giving up a lot of hard contact, a lot of walks, a lot of pitches, not getting deep into games. So I think the Mets are done with him. And yes, listen, he's very cheap. He's only $15 million a year for the next 2 years, and would you hate to give him away for nothing? Yeah, but I think the Mets are just done with him at this point. I don't know what a Senga trade looks like. Is there a team that really wants him and thinks they can fix him and thinks that he can be a top-of-the-rotation kind of starter and is willing to give up a little bit more? Maybe, but I don't see that. I think you're getting maybe a couple lottery tickets or something for him, just some young guys in single A who might turn out to be something, or maybe he's part of a deal for a bigger pitcher to give them a major league pitcher back. Maybe it's Vientos and Senga along with some top prospects for a top-of-the-rotation starter. I could see that being a possibility as well. But it seems like the Mets are focused on trading Kodai Senga this offseason, and Jeff Passan said they want to revamp their rotation. So it seems like that's what they're doing. They just want to revamp everything, both offensively and pitching-wise. I think some of the biggest news we found out from this article is, and probably the most exciting news to me, is that the Mets are in on Devin Williams. And he's a guy that I wanted the Mets, if Edwin Diaz walks and they do not re-sign him, Devin Williams is the guy that I wanted the Mets to sign as the closer. Even if it's on a short-term kind of figure-it-out deal, try to go back into free agency later and get a bigger contract. But what Jeff Passan says in this article is that the Mets have mulled pairing Devin Williams and Edwin Diaz together to kind of create a super pen and to revamp a bullpen that really has nothing in it right now. And to me, that would be a crazy coup for the Mets to pull that off, to get 2 of the top closers in baseball. Now, is Devin Williams wanting to be a setup man? I don't know. He might have an opportunity, and he probably will have an opportunity to close for plenty of teams. But if he's comfortable in New York and he wants to stick around in the area, I don't see why he wouldn't just accept that for a year, a short-term deal. I'm talking about kind of a prove-it deal, because he is coming off of his worst career season last year with the Yankees. Now, albeit that his advanced numbers, his metrics, showed that he was a much better pitcher than what his stats showed. He all of his advanced stuff was still elite. He pitched to a lot of bad luck last year. I know he had a 4.5 plus ERA, and he had his worst season of his career. So maybe he's fine setting up for Edwin Diaz for a year. Maybe he takes a 2-year deal with an opt-out after the first for $30 million and just tries to put himself back out there next year to get that big-time contract as a closer. Maybe his market's just not developing because people are saying, well, maybe he's just not a big-time pitcher. Maybe he's not the closer that we all think, and he needs a year to prove it. Why not set up for the best closer in baseball, pair Devin Williams and Edwin Diaz together, in the back end of that bullpen. I don't know if there's a better one in baseball if Devin Williams figures it out. And there's questions. Look, can he pitch in New York? Is he a big game guy? Remember the home run he gave up against Pete Alonso a couple years ago? Is he the big-time guy? I don't know, but I'd love to see him as a setup man for Edwin Diaz, or if Diaz walks away, make him the closer. I just think it's a very good back end of the bullpen there. You lock down 8th and 9th inning. It's something that the Mets have really not had. They tried to do it last year with Helsley, and in the article, Jeff Passan said Helsley will not be returning. So it seems pretty obvious that Helsley, there's no interest between Helsley and the Mets to bring him back, not even on a prove-it kind of deal, and he has options elsewhere. He's probably going to get $50 or $60 million, even off of his really bad season, so Helsley's not really an option, but the Mets tried to create that last year. They tried to have that lockdown 8th inning guy. It didn't work because they had the wrong guy. Is Devin Williams the right guy after a struggle in New York last year? But he picked it up in the second half and was much, much better. Could he have figured it out, gotten comfortable, and now he's ready to perform in the biggest market? We'll see, but I would love to see that happen. Another thing that on the surface might not seem like it has much to do with the Mets, but it looks like the Pirates kind of forced Seattle to overpay for Naylor. Naylor was the first big free agent to sign this offseason, 5-year, $92.5 million deal, and it seems like the Pirates were in on it, and they're looking to spend money this offseason. Now, I don't really care about the Pirates spending money. I don't think they're going to go after Pete Alonso necessarily, or any free agents that the Mets are really interested in. But the overpay for Naylor might have an effect on the Mets and Alonso. Now, me personally, I don't think it's going to have much of an effect, but I have seen the concerns. Naylor got 5 years for $18 million AAV. He was expected to get 3 or 4 years for $15 to $18 million a year AAV. So he was overpaid a little bit. And does that mean that Alonso now says, well, he got 5 years and I'm the best first baseman on the market, I should get 6 years at least? And if that's the case, he's probably gone. And maybe he gets that from somewhere else and he walks. But if you listen to Andy Martino and some others around baseball, they say that it's not really going to have much of an effect on Pete Alonso's situation at all. Because executives and teams do not view them at the same level. They don't view them as the same type of player. Naylor's only 28 years old. I think he'll be 29 during the season, so he's a couple of years younger than Pete. He's not really in any danger of losing his job at first base. He might not be a great first baseman, but he's adequate, and he does better than Pete at that position, so it's not like he's going to have to move to DH. It's not like you're going to have to move him out of the field, where they feel that Pete is basically just a slugger, and within a year or two, he's going to be a full-time DH. So there's no real comparison between the two. The comparison for Alonso is more like Kyle Schwarber in that vein. Just the slugger DH type, but Pete maybe has a little bit more versatility because he's able to play first base even if it is on a not-so-great level. He is able to play a position, unlike Schwarber, who you just cannot put in the field whatsoever. He's a complete liability. He's not able to play a position. So I don't think it's going to mean that much for the Mets in their pursuit of Alonso. And if you heard the comments from Carlos Beltran a few days ago, their biggest priorities this offseason were re-signing Diaz and Alonso and getting better on defense. If you want to take that, for with a grain of salt, or if you want to take that for what it is, he is a member of the front office. I don't know how involved he is in decision making and all that. I'm sure he's not that involved on a day-to-day basis, but I'm sure he has his finger on the pulse of this team and kind of the direction that they're going. But it seems to me like the Mets want to make a lot of changes. They would love to trade Nimmo and McNeil, love to trade Senga. I'm sure if someone wanted Peterson enough, they'd trade Peterson as well. They just want to make changes on this team. And not just to make changes, but to get better in multiple positions. If you're able to trade Nimmo and McNeil and Senga, you're opening up like $50 million in salary. And that gives you more ammo to go out and sign players who you think fit better. I think there's good players on this team, but they have a fit problem. There's a lot of problems. A lot of them play the same positions. A lot of them are getting older and not able to play the field as well as they did when they first signed. Remember, when Nimmo signed, he was a center fielder and a pretty good one. So they signed him long-term as a center fielder and then immediately moved him to left. So he really doesn't have the same level of value that he did when he signed that contract, and it's only going down. And you're talking about, just changing the culture of the team. And if you want to listen to what the Mets say and what Carlos Beltran says and what they're telling you, they don't necessarily think Alonso is part of that problem. You even heard Soto praise Alonso and say that I hope he's back because we'll have a lot of fun together and he's one of the premier power hitters of the generation. Like, clearly he's not the problem in the locker room. He's not the issue. And I think the biggest issue that Mets fans have is they just want change. And we just want to see a different team out there. But I don't think you get rid of the guy that isn't the problem, right? And I don't think Nimmo's a problem, but I think he's part of the problem. I think McNeil actually is a problem. I think he's not well liked in that locker room. I think Senga's a problem because you can't count on him. So they're looking to get rid of players that are part of the problem, not just get rid of guys just to say we change things up. You have to get rid of the right guys and keep the right guys. And so that's why I think they're still in on Diaz and Alonso. But clearly there's a limit, and they're not going to go over that, and they don't love Alonso maybe as much as other teams do. Diaz also, Jeff Passan says that they like Diaz and would like to have him back, but other teams might want him more and might like him more. So maybe Diaz isn't back. I don't know. Jeff Passan is the guy who's in the know. He knows. He has the most sources. He knows everything. When news breaks, he's the first one to have it. So what he says, I believe, over anyone else. Also, I know like Martino gets a lot of hate, but you should believe Martino too because he is involved with the team more than anyone else. So if he says something, I kind of tend to believe it. Those are the kind of two guys I believe in most with the Mets. I don't deal with Heyman because he's a Boris, he's a Boris plant. He gets all his stories from Scott Boras. But yeah. There's not much happening right now, but this is some interesting tidbits of information from the best guy out there. So take it for what you will. If you're still here, you like this type of content, please subscribe, give me a like, comment what you think is going to happen this offseason. One more interesting thing. The Mets were not mentioned as a suitor for Cody Bellinger. It was basically, I believe, the Yankees, the Blue Jays, and the Dodgers were mentioned as the top 3 landing spots for Bellinger. That kind of contradicts what we've heard all off-season long, is like Bellinger was kind of the first priority for the Mets, even above maybe Pete Alonso. They really liked Bellinger. I just think at this point he probably really likes the Yankees, and I don't think they're going to be able to steal him away, unless you blow him away with an offer, and I just don't see that happening. But it was interesting to see that the Mets aren't really considered a top player for Bellinger, with the New York media basically telling you every day how perfect of a fit it is and how much they're interested, and you didn't hear that from Jeff Passan. So we'll see what happens with Bellinger. I still think the Mets will be interested. I just don't see him really leaving the Yankees. Yeah, but that's really all I got today. Let me know what you think, and until next time, let's go Mets.